I'm the superintendent of the Atlanta-Decatur Oxford District. I've had 3 wonderful years of getting to know a lot of clergy and a lot of parishioners in churches. Beginning July 1st, I will be the district superintendent of the new District 4 Central South District. I'm looking forward to getting to know those individuals. By nature, I'm a storyteller. I think in images. I have a vivid imagination. In fact, you might say that there are 2 frameworks that I see the world through. One framework is a curious storyteller who is interested in relationships, want to know the stories that make people who they are and share those experiences. When I was 8 years old, I was introduced to Marvel Comics. I remember it like it was yesterday. Every Friday, my good friend and I would trade Hostess cupcakes that my mother packed for me for his comic books. I had always heard of Spider-Man or Batman, but having an introduction into the Fantastic Four, the Avengers, Captain America, the Black Panther, helped me to see a world that I never saw. It helped to spur my imagination. The images were what captured me first, but then the stories of how ordinary people were giving challenges that created opportunities for extraordinary action, even though they were frail people. And so those adventures of Marvel Comics in the early days for me has stayed with me. My favorite character is the Incredible Hulk. How does a brilliant scientist, left-thinking brain person deal with unapproachable, unimaginable emotions such as rage and anger and sorrow and disappointment? And how might those 2 parts of individuals fit together? The other framework is a structured, big picture, systems thinking person. I always see the big picture, whether I want to or not. And sometimes those 2 are at odds with one another, as if there's a tug of war going on. The systems perspective, what brings me joy is helping churches to adapt to its culture outside its walls. Perhaps we have had the question asked, how do we get people to come to our church? And why do people outside the church not want to come to our church? Part of it is understanding the culture inside your church and the culture outside your church. And what brings me joy is about helping churches to understand their own culture through the process of discerning, dreaming, and developing creative ways to meet people where they are inside the walls of the church so they may go outside the walls of the church to meet those needs. Ultimately, I think about people and relationships. I've had 28 years of full-time ministry and 25 of those being ordained. I've served in multiple areas of the United Methodist Church, whether it is an associate, a vice president, college chaplain, a church planter, an executive pastor, and I'm currently a superintendent. Dion and I, my wife, have been married 15 years in September. It has been a wonderful relationship. She's the person that I count on. She's my biggest cheerleader and the one that I listen to and seek advice from the most. She's not afraid to tell me that this is a boneheaded idea. But at the same time, her love and support has meant the world to me. I can be myself with her, and so it's a wonderful relationship. I care very deeply about the church. I was born and raised in a church. My call story is like Samuel, in the church, hearing God's voice and trying to find mentors that will help me to discern what this call meant so that I can be faithful and obedient. I also know that there are great disappointments in churches sometimes. Pastors move, people move away, things change. And so I've had disappointment in my life as well. Whether it was watching both of my parents die or dealing with 2 kidney transplants, I understand the intersection between disappointment and faith. And in both of those instances in my life, the church provided a community that helped me to make sense out of things. So what can churches and pastors expect from working with me? One, I will always listen. I will always ensure that I hear and see you. I will always share your stories as sacred. In fact, for me, that's why the Bible is called the Holy Bible. What makes it holy is these are encounters of people who have experienced God in remarkable ways. And it's those stories between God and those people, our ancestors of faith, that makes it sacred and holy. So you can depend upon me to be as available as possible, open as possible, but also I want to help the church. And in doing that, I'm going to begin asking questions, a lot of questions. But my questions are never for criticism. They're for curiosity and clarity. And so I would love to have conversation with key leaders, the pastors in the churches, to help them to discern, dream, and develop and imagine new ways to connect people with Jesus. That will be my rallying cry for churches, to help them to discern, dream, and develop new and creative ways to connect people with Jesus.